Hello, I am Dr. Paul Jehle, Executive Director of the Plymouth Rock Foundation, which was begun in 1970 to preserve and propagate the history and heritage of the Pilgrims. Who were the Pilgrims? Why did they sail to these shores almost 400 years ago? What motivated them to sacrifice their lands, their families, and even their lives for such a venture? And when they had the chance, why did not one pilgrim return to England the next spring? In the year 2020, the American pilgrimage turns 400. In other words, it will have been 4 centuries since a small remnant church plant crossed the ocean and landed on the shores of New England. During the Great Reformation, occurring in England in the late 16th century, Bradford writes, "By the travail and diligence of some godly and zealous preachers, many became enlightened by the word of God, and had their ignorance and sins discovered unto them." These new believers were, as Bradford says, scoffed and scorned by the profane multitude. And he goes on and says, they were ones whose hearts the Lord had touched with heavenly zeal for His truth. They shook off this yoke of anti-Christian bondage, and as the Lord's free people, joined themselves by a covenant of the Lord into a church estate, in the fellowship of the gospel, to walk in all His ways, made known or to be made known unto them, according to their best endeavors, whatsoever it should cost them. You see, these pilgrims were initially called separatists because they removed themselves from the state church and formed an underground one. It was their faith in God, rooted in the Scriptures, that brought them here. They were willing to sacrifice all they had and even their lives, whatsoever it should cost them. They crossed the Atlantic, formed a colony, endeavoring to walk in all God's ways as they saw it in the Scriptures. But 4 centuries have now passed, and their legacy lives on. The most important treasure brought on the Mayflower were the ideas of self-government and liberty of conscience drawn from the pages of the Bible. So we are calling all Americans back to Plymouth, Massachusetts, June 28th through July 2nd, 2020, for the American Pilgrimage 400. It is an event conducted in Plymouth in cooperation with Plymouth 400 and its other signature events. But you will not want to miss any activity during this week. Beginning with an opening rally at the National Monument to the Forefathers, we will retell the story of how a band of freedom-loving families committed to the gospel of Jesus Christ braved an ocean, as Bradford says, stepping stones unto others and future generations. Through drama, music, inspiring speakers, historic tours, activities for all ages, we will hear from Wampanoag and Pilgrim ancestors. We'll hear from a delegation from the United Kingdom and the Netherlands, as well as dignitaries, state and town leaders from America's hometown, Plymouth, Massachusetts. Consider investing $40 as an individual toward this event. As a church or ministry, invest $400 if you're able. Let us unite and encourage one another from this snapshot in history that a nation planted by the seeds of the gospel through a church plant can bring forth the fruit of religious and civil liberty. We hope to see you there in June to July